convene the regular meeting and call for a roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Mom?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Roth?
Here.
Commissioner Neely?
Here.
Commissioner Pauly?
Here.
And Vice Chair Edgar?
Here.
And, Commissioner Yates? Commissioner Yates?
Phil,
Yes.
are you here?
Hello?
Are you on mute?
We're asking for you to confirm that you're a part of the meeting.
I'm here.
Okay. Okay, the roll call, we have ceremonies and proclamations, and do we have any?
The election of the chair and the vice chair first.
Okay. So let's, we had a vote last time that we had a regular meeting, and we're going to have a do-over, I guess. Is that what?
That's correct. You'll want to do the nomination again.
Okay.
And the seconds and go through it.
Okay,
all
let's
over
call for nominations for chair. That's first up.
Yes.
I nominate Kathy Roth.
We have a nomination for Kathy Roth.
And a second?
Second.
Can I say something? Sure. I don't know if this is the time to say. I really don't think if I get a new job that I have time to be commission president and urban renewal president or chair, whatever.
That's why we have a vice chair, too. Chair and a vice chair.
That's your call.
I'll try to keep your responsibilities as president of the city commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any other nominations? We don't?
Oh, I nominate Paul.
I second.
Okay, so any further nominations?
If not, we'll close the nominations then. I guess.
And I'll call your name, and if you'd like to state who you would like to nominate, or vote for chair, I'll record that here. Commissioner Pauly?
Commissioner Roth.
Commissioner Mum?
Commissioner Roth.
Commissioner Roth?
Commissioner Edgar.
Edgar? Commissioner Smith?
Edgar.
Commissioner Neely?
Mr. Roth.
Commissioner Edgar?
Mr. Edgar.
Commissioner Yates?
Ms. Roth.
Okay.
It's
So we have one, two, we have
Okay.
and 4 for Commissioner Roth and 3 for Commissioner Edgar.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to your promise. Both of you.
Okay.
And now for the vice chair.
Okay. For vice chair,
nominate Commissioner Edgar.
I second that motion.
is there any other nominations?
Okay. I'll call your names, and you let. Well, it's
Unanimous.
Would it be unanimous?
Yeah.
And Commissioner Yates.
Yeah.
That's fine with Edgar.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so the motion, the nomination passes, and Commissioner Edgar is vice chair. So we'll need
Thank you.
to pass over the gavel to Commissioner Roth.
Pass over my seat.
Or if you want to stay right where you are.
No,
They're already
oh.
standing.
Okay.
Okay. There you go. Thank you. Okay. So we've done that, okay. So we're at 2B, which is the presentation by DEA of PSU Architecture Student Gateway Design Concept for the People's Choice Award. This is for the student presentations we had last week, was it?
Yes. We had a little mix-up on timing, so we've got our PSU student arriving at 5:30. So our consultants are here, but we're wondering if we can't ask
Quiet.
Eric to step up a little earlier and go through some things, and maybe they'll be here by, hopefully they should be on time. Sounds like they're on time. They just were planning to come at 5:30 instead
Okay.
of 5.
Okay. That sounds,
Okay. So, the last Urban Renewal Commission meeting, one of the commissioners requested that a presentation be given by our city attorney to explain Measure 3407 and how we should be operating within the parameters of that measure. I've since asked Bill Kbeisman to do that for us, and I think he's prepared a presentation, and if he's ready, I'll just ask him to.
I would like to make just one comment before you start, if I could, please. I did ask for the urban renewal attorney to be present because this was written out of this particular law office, and I'm sure that he would do a great job, but he and the other attorney from the same law office had a difference of opinion about the matter, I remember. So I did ask specifically for our urban renewal attorney to be here to do this,
Okay.
just so you know.
Okay.
great.
So does the commission want to hear this report, and then we can also get we can get Mr. Janik at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to do that, or do you want to wait and just have Mr. Janik do it, or?
No, I think we should.
Yeah, yes, I do too.
Yeah, let's go ahead and hear both, I think.
Sure, and hopefully we'll tell you the same thing.
I don't know. It's like a doctor, you know.
Yeah,
Everybody's
you
got
want
their
a second
opinion.
opinion.
Second opinion. Yeah.
And it never hurts to get a second opinion. But to some extent, 3-407 is a little interesting and does some interesting thing that they don't have. Well, let's go through. 3-407, if you remember, was a measure that requires a public vote before the Urban Renewal Commission of the City of Oregon City adopts issues new bonded indebtedness. It defines bonded indebtedness very broadly to mean a written obligation to pay money for a period more than a year, and that's taken directly from the statutes about what a bond is. And to a certain extent, it may go further than you think it does at some time. If you enter into a janitorial services contract, well, you can't enter into that because urban renewal agencies only do capital investments. But there may be situations where there are contracts that you think aren't subject to it actually are. But for the most part, the bonded indebtedness that you're going to worry about is the borrowing of money against future tax revenues, the increment, and that's really what we're going to talk about. And I'll focus on that. And the question that I really heard from Eric were really two in nature. One was about sort of mechanics. How does a vote occur? And then the second one was the scope of what that vote might be. Are there individual, every time somebody issues, the Urban Renewal Commission wants to issue bonds, does it go out? Can it do a larger one? And so let me step back first and do the mechanics one of how it occurs. If you remember, the Measure 3407 actually amended the city's charter. The Urban Renewal Commission doesn't have its own charter, and the Urban Renewal Agency is kind of an interesting creature. They're created by statute, but they don't come into an existence until the governing body, in this case Oregon City Commission, says we have blighted areas in the city and we want to do something about it. And once they make that declaration, the Urban Renewal Agency sort of springs into action and with this whole list of powers and other things. But because the limitation is actually in the city charter, and the Urban Renewal Commission isn't directly elected; it's appointed. The consensus of what, when we looked at it, was that the way it should happen is that the Urban Renewal Commission wants to issue bonded indebtedness. It adopts a resolution asking the City Commission to send something out to a vote of the people, because there's not that direct connection between the Urban Renewal Commission and the voters. So what would happen is the Urban Renewal Commission wants to adopt issue bonds. It says we want to issue bonds, City Commission, please put this to a vote of the people. The City Commission would then refer the question out to the voters by adopting a resolution, like the City Commission is considering this evening regarding the water rights measure. That's how it should operate. So then the next question was really the scope of how bonds get approved by the voters. And the answer to that is the classic lawyer answer of, it depends. You can do it in a variety of different ways. You could specifically authorize the issuance of bonds to cover a specific issuance to deal with a specific project and tie the Urban Renewal Commission's bonding very tightly to the project. You can also do a much more a lengthier one where you have multiple bond issues to deal with multiple specific projects. And you can also do a more general situation. There's been, I think the City of Portland has gotten, there hasn't been a specific complaint or court case or anything about it, but there's been some discussion about some of their bond authorizations and the generality of it and whether, and how general they are on it, because to a large extent, the more general, the more we want to authorize the City of Oregon City's Urban Renewal Commission to issue $120 million in bonds to cover the projects that are identified in the current Urban Renewal Plan. There's a lot of leeway in that, and do the voters really know what they're authorizing in that situation? But so far there hasn't been any issue with it, and so there's a whole spectrum of what you want to do. I'd hoped to track down, I wasn't able to do it, sort of examples at both ends of the spectrums. And I'm going to keep looking for those resolutions that have been sent out to the voters where you've got specific projects and a much more general authorization. And so when I do that, I'll make sure Eric gets those and passes those along. But the simple answer is it depends, and the Urban Renewal Commission and ultimately the City Commission is the one who gets to decide how specific they want to be in what they want to send out to the voters. There's another issue. What happens if the Urban Renewal Commission says, City Commission, please send this to the voters, and the City Commission says, no, we don't like this, we want it to be rewritten? Hopefully we'll never get to that, but that's a potential issue that may arise. I think the way in which there are a variety of options for that to resolve itself, one of which we've seen in this city not too long ago, where the City Commission basically took the Urban Renewal Commission back to itself and reconstituted it, and that's authorized by statute for the City Commission to do it at any time as well. So that's a general overview dealing with the questions that I'd heard. Happy to answer any specific questions, or if you want me to talk about any aspect of it in more detail, happy to do that as well.
Does anyone have any specific questions?
I think that was pretty thorough.
Pretty thorough, yeah. Okay.
I'm still kind of concerned in the area of just I really don't see anything other than if we come across some project or series of projects that require funding levels over multiple years greater than what we have in reserves, that we just we make a determination that we want to bond it. We just have to take it out to the public. It's just simple as that. Is there something more than that we have to think about?
Simple answer is no, and to a certain extent you want to keep faith with the voters. The question really comes down to is how do you do that? My guess is that you'll probably have some constituents who think, I want to vote on every single bond that comes out. You do the Amtrak station, I want to vote. You do this building, I want to vote. There are other ones who would probably say, I don't need to know about the specifics. I need dollar amounts and general area, and that's micromanaging that the voters really shouldn't get into as a policy matter. And that's where I think you have some flexibility and some leeway about, and really you need to make the call about what you think is the appropriate as a commission level of what the voters want to authorize.
So a line of credit like we've had before would require a vote of the people to establish a new multi-year line of credit, but if it was callable, Again, so we may have a line of credit that's, in a sense, renewed annually?
I think you probably could have a line of credit that's renewed annually to, extensive amount, as long as it's not due, as long as it doesn't extend for over a year.
So you're kind of telling me that we could do it one of two ways. Either we put per project out for a vote, or we ask them to vote on the North End or the urban renewal plan and X amount of millions of dollars.
And I did talk about it in two ways, but I think it's better to think of it as a spectrum, because you can do it, all at once, individual project, a certain area, a certain dollar amount. There are different ways that you can do it.
Or if we have our rental property, or this property, or some property, and let's take the houses on Second and Tumwater that are owned by the Urban Renewal Commission, and we were to have a maintenance contract on those properties to provide, in a sense, property management type oversight to keep them up. That contract could be. Would that contract be subject to a vote of the people?
If it extends over a year,
Yes.
and it's
So we'd
obligation to
have to do
pay,
an
if it's
annual.
over an annual, yeah. So, you can set up your contract so that they don't extend more than a year, or you can send a contract like that to a vote.
Can you give? Is there any kind of hard examples that you can give us where we might be in some gray areas, that based upon what have historically happened in Oregon City?
In terms of giving you gray areas, it's part of it is there's so many permutations of what might have happened, what didn't happen. I'm trying to think of specific examples where there's gray areas. I think our advice to you would be to always, if there's any doubt, send it to a vote, or make it for less than a year. It's the last thing the Urban Renewal Commission and the city needs is a big fight about this should have been sent to a vote or not.
So I guess that does bring up a point. If there's a lawsuit, who is the attorney that represents the city?
Actually, I'm going to answer your question, but I'm
Okay.
also going to bring up something else that I meant to bring in the original thing. This was a January 13th decision from the Oregon Supreme Court, where somebody tried to challenge a school district that had a similar requirement for a vote of the people, and it was up in Deschutes County. And the Supreme Court, you had somebody who was a voter and a taxpayer of the district saying, you need to declare this invalid. And the court said the taxpayer and voter had no standing, didn't have the right to bring the case to challenge it, because there wasn't a specific harm to that person that wasn't general to every other voter or every other taxpayer. And they said for standing, you've got to show a concrete harm to you that's somewhat special. And it's a little more complex than that. But that's one of the questions is, if there's a lawsuit, who can bring it? And there's an interesting question buried in that as to who can bring it. If you remember, there has been a lawsuit in the past about issuing of bonds, in particular with the water rates, and in that case you had the bond holders who could say, we're not voters, we're not taxpayers, but if this goes into effect, it's going to impact the city's ability to pay us money that it owes us. And the court said, okay, that we'll give you standing there because you've alleged a concrete harm that's different than the general population. So the first question is whether or not anybody can bring a court case. Where you'll see a lot of the fight may be more in politics, and those SOBs on the Urban Renewal Commission are skirting this and not sending it to a vote that they should. But if and now I've forgotten your question. So
Who represents the urban renewal and the city of Oregon City in case of a lawsuit?
at this point, we represent the city of Oregon City. We've also represented the urban renewal agencies on a variety of different things that are not specific matters. It would be up to the city manager who hires the city attorney to decide who it is who actually represents them.
So your answer would be?
In the case of a lawsuit, it's going to be whoever is assigned by our insurance carrier, CCIS.
So you don't have a choice. It's whoever they say.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if we had an objection and we had a reason for it, I'm sure that they would listen.
Okay.
But it's really their call because they usually have attorneys that are on standby for the company throughout the state.
I guess it's an assumption on my part, but if in fact the city commission is the one that puts it before the vote of the people, I presume it's the city's attorney then that deals with it.
And in part, it may depend on how the complaint comes in, who it's against, and what allegations are. Because the manager's completely right. If it brings up in things that are covered by insurance policy, we could always choose to tell our insurance policy, no, we're not going to take the insurance, and we're going to cover it ourselves. Whether the commission would want to take on that financial obligation, I don't know. But there are certain things that are excluded by the city's insurance policy, and in those cases, you wouldn't necessarily have the insurance. But most of the time on something like that, I would expect that it would be covered by insurance.
Anybody else? Questions?
Yeah. That was my main question, was how this is going to work and how we implement it, and if it's going to be on each plan or each project, and to make sure that we do hold true to the wishes of the voters for what they voted for and what was in mind. It sounds like we can kind of, do it case by case, but I think that if it is by a broader plan, there should be constraints there, so the voters understand there's a limitation or something, so, to still hold in the trust. I guess it just depends on which projects come through and if they can be packaged together or if they really are standalone.
And that might be something that the Urban Renewal Commission wants to sort of develop a policy on, of what we're going to look at, and how much flexibility to build into it, and a conversation you might want to have with the manager and the economic development manager.
Anything else? Okay, so we'll wait for Steve Janik to give us the second.
We'll try to have him here at the next meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. So, are we back to the award? Is everybody here? John?
Yes, and by the way, our student wasn't late to class. He was early for class. We just gave him the wrong time. So definitely our fault.
That's your evaluation. You may have a problem.
Not that I'm giving grades, but deserves an A. So, Alita and our design team, Gil and Scott Manzer, I think, are you presenting, Scott? Yes, too. So we have a combination of presenters, and all leading off with Alita. So, get started. Get our screen.
That's cool. It's really cool.
While Alita's getting ready, I'm going to say this a little earlier, I think. You all know, I think, that Alita's our new city engineer, and with that comes other responsibilities besides project management. So, this is it's kind of bad news and kind of good news both, really, because Eric Wergren's going to step up as Alita steps back, and so Eric Wergren stepping up would be the good news, by the way, if you were having trouble figuring that out. just to let you know. So anyway, Eric and Alita are working closely together. They're just a couple doors away, by the way. So I think it's going to be a good transition, and we'll just keep moving forward, doing good things with this project. So
Good.
Thanks, Eric.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, hi. As a reminder, I'm Gil Williams. I'm a landscape architect with David Evans and Associates, and have been working with Scott Dreher as the project manager for the Dunes Drive Gateway project. We're here tonight to acknowledge the design presentations and the awards. As a brief reminder, just to recap kind of what the process was, we started on January 12th, I believe, which is Saturday. We took a large group of students out from Portland State University's School of Architecture and toured the site and just became familiar with a lot of the physical aspects out there. And then the following Saturday, we had about a half-day workshop down at PSU, and we were joined by the mayor as one of the participants, as well as some other folks. Talked to the students, answered their questions with regards to some of the goals of the city, some of the values of the city, as well as some of the functional characteristics of the corridor and the facility and what it needed to accomplish. And in a week, they came up with, I think, and all who have seen the presentation, some very creative solutions. And we ended up having 7 teams, 2 teams of 2 people, and the rest were single entrants. And so what I'd like to do tonight, yes?
Can I clarify? You said they came up with this stuff in a week?
In 1 week, yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
That was
it
really
it's
impressive.
amazing.
That's amazing.
That is.
And they and you know, not just kind of the graphic presentation part of it, but I think the thought that went into it was exceptional. So I commend them and the program, and I think that, you know, I have the tough task of having to distill a lot of this and make it and fold it into a cohesive design. And so that's the tough part, really. It's trying to figure out what valuable elements of each of these, because they all had some really nice elements, and we'll go through them here. But it was a great process, and I think, you know, on behalf of Jeff Schnabel, who is the professor at PSU, I think they're very grateful for the opportunity. I think that the students, and maybe Chris can touch on it, Chris is the winning entrant, but sorry. All right. Well, he's here.
This would be a surprise.
All right. So again, this is just the recap, and we can talk a little bit about the, you know, the next time at about 60%. That's when we start folding these ideas into the design, and then next time that they'll be available for review. Again, this is the presentations were January 29th, which was a week ago yesterday. 7 design presentations to a full house. The selection of the unknown winner was made by People's Choice Award. But it was well attended, and I think a really good experience for all. So to start with, we had a great variety of designs, and I don't spend a lot of time on each one. I think that these are all available to see. I think each of the entries did a good job of capturing some of the historical elements, as well as some, you know, looking forward. Some of the one in the middle here is in the instance that the properties north of McDonald's are developed. So thinking ahead about what that might look like in terms of an interface with the developed piece of property. Again, the thought, this is navigate the idea with the lighting up of the Clackamas River Bridge was inspired by wagon trains coming across the prairies and what they saw at night. And so the idea that this would be starlit nights here and at I-205 underneath that bridge. And so they would present themselves as starlit nights. And then incorporating some of that into the, you know, some of the history into the sidewalk and the more the pedestrian spaces there. Connectivity was a huge part of this. I think a lot of the designs did a great job of looking at the previous design, Phase 1 at Willamette Terrace, and pulling some of the elements of that design into this design. You can see on the lower left there the railing that is kind of carried through, and trying to create some continuity between the two spaces to link this all together using wood, stone, metal. which harken back a little bit to the industrial history of Oregon City. So I think that a lot of the designs acknowledged and recognized it, and actually tried to highlight it. Underneath some of these steel forms down here at the bottom of these are these little plates, which you see here, which are historic markers that will delineate and interpret some of the historic aspects of downtown. We asked the students to think big. This is probably the biggest, which was good, because it really, I think, it inspired some thought. And there's not elements in here they're quite possibly there are elements in this that we could extract and move forward. Probably not the big structure in the middle of the road or the big cantilever bridge structure, but there are other things that we liked about this. Almost to a team, I think. In this upper corner here, you can see this wall, and there's some historic elements here. And I think to a team, they all acknowledged that and made some effort to highlight some of the historic firsts that happened in Oregon City and the significance, and trying to make it not just a pass-through space, but a space where people would linger and maybe absorb some of the content. Again, the utilization of the materials. This design in particular, I think, did a good job in developing what is truly a gateway, which kind of hugs the road here. You can see it here and in this picture down at the lower left. As you're coming down 99, something that announces this arrival, you come through this portal into Oregon City. He used steel and wood in the structure. He actually kind of got down to the detail of it, and which was kind of nice because he acknowledged again the timber and steel industry of Oregon City, and I think they all thought a lot about that, and I think that this one starts to talk about the gateway element. And I think you can see in this top left as you drive down 99 how you would actually, or you're actually coming south here, and you would go through this portal and trying to create a different space. At nighttime, one of the things that I know Jeff, the instructor, pushes a lot is that these places have to be active at night, and I think that this entry definitely thought that and tried to emphasize it. To orient you here, and this is the frontage road. So 99's up here above, and this is the Firestone tire shop. Wow!
I like that.
So it's actually. I think he said it's he says that's actually taken out of Grafton Street in Dublin, Ireland. But that's. But the idea was he's trying to evoke some imagery and some vision on our part, which we appreciate. And I think one of the important things he did in this design that we might carry forward is the activation of what is otherwise going to be a pretty dead space down on the left-hand side there. So right here, this area right in here, and that's right now is kind of targeted for some stormwater treatment, and I think he's done a good job of activating it. And here again, I think in this one, he really captured the idea of this gateway in this one here. And so you could really see you're kind of embraced as you come down 99 into Oregon City. Confluence, one of the things we really emphasized during our work session was the multimodal aspect of this facility and the need to accommodate not only the autos and the trucks and things that use it now, but other forms of mass transit, bikes, peds, and anything else that would, including the river as well. I think that's another something. John Strong Park has the boat dock there, so I think there's a lot of modes of transportation, and I think that's what this particular entry was trying to speak to, and I think they did a pretty good job of that, talking about this space becoming the confluence of all these different modes of transportation. And also seems to be where the Clackamas and Willamette come together, so convenient. So, with no further ado, big surprise here. Yeah. What is it all right if I have Chris come up
I think, well, I guess they have a present. That's why we're saying, don't take
Okay.
their thunder.
All right.
Mister.
Oh.
So do you have controls over this?
No.
No, go ahead.
We can.
I don't have any thunder here.
You want to give your
Okay.
presentation?
Well, why don't we let, real quick, I mean, if Chris wants to just maybe, do you want to come up and just really quickly talk to your idea and your design?
Sure.
That's kind of, that'd be great. I can, if you want to sit or stand, either one.
I'll sit.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Chris Klein, PSU.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you for you guys' opportunity for letting us take part in this. We all are still talking about it, and really enjoyed the opportunity to take part and actually work with the community and actually put out our designs and have some feedback on them. It was really enjoyable. So should I just?
Yeah.
So with this design, what I was kind of going for was when we were handed the project kind of outlines and goals, we were given a sheet also that kind of talked about all these aspects of Oregon City's history. And it was a whole sheet filled with all these different kind of facts from, if I can recall, having like the first moonshine spill, to some of the facts, other ones that I don't know, that's the only one that sticks in my mind. But
I wonder why.
but I wanted to really incorporate that. So, not the moonshine stuff, but so I really want to, and I always find when I see these kind of pictures, of a long time ago, there's kind of an awe that I have. You just kind of envision the time that was happening then and things that people were going through, and they tell a story in themselves, and they hold a whole kind of background that I wanted to be able to share with as you kind of entered the city. So the idea with this board is what I wanted to do was looking at right across when you come across the bridge there. Yeah, I wonder how it's actually laid out. Okay, I wanted to have it kind of be this segment as you came into the city here, and it kind of resided along the space where I wanted people to be able to go back to the river and take an area that was mainly focused on cars coming in and recreate it to a space where people would want to come back and actually bicycle through and walk and kind of have time with their family and space to exist, and like that romantic walk at night and that place to kind of remember the history of Oregon City and also have that somewhat of a park feel. So as this was kind of coming to fruition with the idea was to create safe bike travel, also along with safe pedestrian travel. So instead of really doing a whole lot with the road, just highlighting the road and with painting it and making it a visual break. And then at night, that is kind of an illuminated space that kind of calls calls the cars as they go by that there's maybe like cyclists going by and brings visual attention to somebody on a bike.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How would you see that lighting happening?
Well, what I imagine is we just came out of a night studio, so we did a lot of studies in lights, and I guess the kind of big light that people kind of were drawn to was the idea of LEDs and strips of LEDs existing. Same as like you would have upshining lights where you kind of see where there's like trees usually, but that would just be at a lower level. That's like an LED strip that kind of runs all the way down.
And cars wouldn't damage it? Or?
No, I would see it kind of being like a somewhat a protected element and maybe behind some kind of like thick acrylic, but bright enough where it highlights, kind of reflects the red that happens there, but not bright enough where it's distracting for a driver. So it's kind of that operates at that lower level. And so that would be kind of the idea for the cyclist. And then for the pedestrians, what I wanted to create was this kind of long-running boardwalk idea that instead of just operating with parallel lines, it would kind of merge in and out with the ecology, as you can kind of see here and here, that it would let natural vegetation in the area and kind of the wildlife that is existing a little bit, like this kind of tree area and stuff, merge back into that space and not really just have it be a hard line between street, bicycle, and pedestrian space. And then the big part of what I wanted to do was the idea of the timeline, was an embedded kind of timeline space here that you can see where you could kind of walk back through the years and look at the history, and those would kind of present themselves as these elements that, or like landmarks that would emerge up, and they would display the visual history. and little facts or kind of interesting stories or really kind of all these different kind of backgrounds to Oregon City, and that people could kind of have something to do when they're going there. So it's not just a walkway, but it's an actual artifact within itself. And then I imagined at nighttime, kind of over here, that in between these panels are actually lights. So it kind of calls as you're driving in. You see these lit panels, and they're uplit, and the benches have down lighting and everything. So it creates, when you're driving by, it creates something you're like of an interest, and you want to come back and see it. And then during the day, you finally get to go see what you kind of drove by quickly in the night. So that was the overall idea, and I really enjoyed working on it, and I think that there's a great opportunity for the history of Oregon City to be shared with people. So, thank you.
Thank you. This is very cool.
A real nice aspect, if I might. There are people in the Natural Resource Committee that are very interested in dark skies, and your illumination seems to be down where people can see it as opposed to directed up in the sky where planes can see it maybe. But yeah, so it had I thought it had a very appealing direction in that way.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I like too how it linked the boardwalk to the existing boardwalk further south. I felt it was a good link, and I like the light in too.
I made a comment to Doug, and I felt like that it was hard to choose a winner because there were so many. But but I felt that this was such an unusual opportunity where the city won.
Yeah.
We won more than you did, and we thank you and thank everyone for allowing this to happen, because this idea of pulling out this level of creativity, and just think of it in 1 week. This is
great.
This is amazing, and this is, in a sense, what our youth and some of these new minds are that are capable of doing. And I just thought I think it's fantastic, and thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, we really all enjoyed it. I think we actually put down all of our schoolwork and all just wanted to focus on this.
And I'm sure your teachers understood, right?
we had Jeff last studio, and so when he brought the opportunity, we said, okay, you just have to cover for us. So we have a week to kind of really get down and work on this project. So he stood up for us. So.
That was very nice.
That's why it was only a week.
In particular, Commissioner Roth there had great interest in us finding projects which we could work with the state university institutions on, and I think this is a great example of what can
absolutely.
happen.
Absolutely.
I would say the same. We've been able to see similar renderings of Millside and various other parts of Oregon City, and I hope that this kind of process continues because it's really exciting, and I wish I could drop a couple weeks of work to just design something like this. I have a lot of designs in my head about what I think Oregon City should look like as well, and these are incredible. The individual, I don't remember the different projects that really focused on the gateway. I thought those were very intriguing, and it's creating a gateway in such a limited amount of space as that area. I mean, there's other gateways of the city that could probably be enhanced, but in a better way because of the area to work with and that kind of thing. And this is pretty constrained, and so seeing the creativity to the amount of creativity that can be done in that small space, I think, is interesting. The Confluence project I also thought was interesting, and I love the tie-in with the skateboards and all. I mean, the whole park there really took the whole park and the trail system into consideration. And your project, which I think is really incredible as well, because of its connection to the history. But I'm intrigued by the illuminated curb. Which I don't know how you do it or if it's possible to do it, but it's incredible and it's really, really cool. So I don't know. It's awesome, and I think that I love the irregular pathway. Kind of with the consistent timeline, but the pathway that almost looks like it's been there, the history of the city, and with these little elements, and especially having even parts of the center of the walkway not being part of the walkway. Kind of having those little islands in there, I think, breaking it up and causing people to kind of wander rather than just walk from one place to another. It's very cool. It's very exciting, and I was, in fact, before this presentation, I didn't get to go to the presentation on the night that it was shared with everyone, so I was like hoping that we were going to see them all tonight in a quick way, but at least I got to see them all, and they're incredible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, Chris, we have an award for you here, or a thank you presentation. And I want to thank you very much for the time and effort that all of you put into it, and especially for your creativity. Maybe someday we'll see a Chris Klein plaque down there on the. I'd also like to maybe put this a bug in the ear of the commission here. We might be able to do this again when we try to tie the two pieces together. Because I think that's going to be a real challenge.
Yes,
So.
I think so too.
Great. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Thank
And
you all very much.
and other projects.
Yes.
The-
Others.
Yeah, got a lot of ideas.
Yes.
It's a good addition.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back to the boring stuff.
Fun stuff is done.
Yeah. So real quick, just kind of a project update. We turned in our 30% submittal on Monday. It's called the Design Acceptance Package by ODOT's definition. It basically outlines the design criteria, gives the skeleton of the project, what the lane widths, the sidewalks. All these architectural elements are going to be worked on starting now through probably the 90% design and maybe even close to the 100%. So you'll be able to see. Gil actually has the hardest job. He's been shown the $1 million, $2 million designs, and I gave him $5 and told him to make it happen. So he's distilling. The idea is out. He's going to bring them down to a real version. Like he said earlier, there's an element from each one of these that can actually be pulled into this project. Mm-hmm. So right around our 60% design, which is in May, I think before that we'll have an open house mid-April, and there'll be the Urban Renewal Commission on May 15th. Was right around our workshop for the 60% design. Some elements will be in there, however, nothing is final at that stage. We're still at the 60%. It's more defining those boundaries, making sure we're not going into right-of-way, keeping things within the cost. One thing that we did on this 30% was put a cost to it. We are a little high. We're looking at ways to reduce and cut some of the boring elements so that we're able to incorporate some of these architectural elements into the project, keeping in mind that safety is first and foremost on this project. But I think they did a great job of showing how you can do both. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to moving into the next step. Like I said, Gil's got a real tough job. Just an update on the schedule. I went over the 60% design. Then we've got the open house. We have yet to set a date. We'll give at least a month's notice on that. And another urban renewal meeting around that 60%. So things will be a little more defined. Some of the architectural elements will be in there. We'll have worked through some of the design issues. And we'll be sharing those along the way. And then the rest of the schedule, it'll probably change a little bit, but end of the September for their final design. Just to recap real quick, ODOT chose the bikes or shoulder on the road. So if you noticed in all those presentations, they did incorporate that. So we were going for bikes off the road. I think we kind of shared that, but there were some safety issues, concerns that came up and valid. We had a nice workshop with ODOT to kind of come through. ODOT made the design decision. We took it on and then gave it to the PSU students, and you can see they incorporated it quite well. I think we'll get the best of both worlds on this project, meeting ODOT standards and city requirements.
Great.
So I think that's it. If there's any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
As one of the participants, one of the points that I would like to make here is that it was brought up that with the ODOT people at present at Monday's meeting, that we're really not going to achieve any new improvements in the area as far as transportation is concerned. So once this improvement's done, and there are constraints, and I spent some time talking with Alita about it, and she brought me up to speed with the implications of the right-of-way that we have to deal with. And so there's a bump out like close to where McDonald's is. And it constrains, and it means that we don't have free movement. We queue up vehicles to move into the two right-through lanes that go through Oregon City. And so this queuing up problem, just because of the way the design is, flowing towards the bridge, the 205 bridge, means that what we have is what we get. And but the biggest problem is that we, after $4 million spent in this project, we don't gain any additional capacity or solve some of the problems in the area. And it is a concern of mine that we should be able to get a greater, in a sense, return on investment, in as much as that we have $1 million of urban renewal money into the project that makes Oregon City more effective for business and commerce. And we're not going to achieve some of that.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm not interested in drive-through traffic. I want to get off the Dunes or 14th Street or 12th Street or 10th
And walk,
Street.
huh?
And then get out of their cars and walk around. That's it.
Like I said on Monday, it's in the transportation system plan of ODOT to fix that intersection. It is, and I looked it up, it's a $50 million project to add another lane onto the freeway, a lane across that bridge. I mean, they know there's a traffic issue coming in the future. It will have to be addressed, but it'll be addressed at the intersection, the interchange. So the roadway, you don't want to widen to solve this problem. It's more just get the people out and onto the freeway quicker, which is that's ODOT's job. ODOT doesn't have any money in this project. I think your money is being spent where it should be, and that's on your amenities, safety, and features to tie into future development. So I think Oregon City is getting everything and more with their money, and we're going to do our best to put in some of these elements and kind of squeeze the nickel, so to speak.
I've got a couple things. I don't remember, when was that intersection redone before? How many years has that been? When they widened McLaughlin and...
I mean, the
to
first
me,
phase one.
No, by the shopping center.
Dunes Drive intersection.
When
It wasn't a long time ago, but it was.
Were you on the commission then?
They didn't do any.
Pre that.
They did some repaving and striping, but I'm not sure
Yeah,
if that's even. Is that what you're talking
another
about?
turn
All the
lane and
medians
median
and
and
stuff
stuff.
are new.
But to me, it's so much
Long
better than it
lane.
was that I think it's new.
It's probably been. Yeah, I think it's new too, but it's probably been.
They
10
put a right
years or-
turn lane in right to the shopping center. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, they did a lot of things.
Yeah.
They
It was
extended.
11 years ago, and it
One
was already
thing,
done.
one thing that I'll add,
Oh,
and I really think Scott's mentioned it, but city managers actually asked us for our top 3 projects so that we can share that from transportation projects, large transportation projects, so that we can share that with our state representatives and electeds on that end. And that highway project and that interchange project would be one of those.
Okay.
So I think as I share that with David and the details of that, probably should share it with you folks as well, so that we can all start turning the wrenches on that and see if we can't get funding approved for that interchange. Because I'm not sure that we have the bottom. I know visually there's a change in alignment of curb there, but I think Scott's right. The problem is at the interchange, and so with lighting, with enhancements that make it more visible, those help guide traffic in a more efficient way as well. So. You get a lot.
The other thing is, you'll get tired of hearing me talk about this, but we need to incorporate dogs as well as bicycles. Just to have lots of trash cans along the way.
I didn't see any fire hydrants in the design.
No,
Standard height or the shorter ones?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very good.
Okay, citizen comments. Do we have citizen comments?
On the floor.
On the floor. Barbara Rinkin, are you on the floor? Come up.
Yeah, I think it is.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Rankin, Oregon City, and I'm here with a concern about the urban renewal ballot that was passed by 71%. It hasn't been reflected in the city charter. I went through it, and the last note on the revisions is in September. So, due to the fact that we recently had a bungle, rather
Yeah.
expensive bungle.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think whatever the checklist is on this, or whoever is responsible, needs to have somebody else checking, or I don't know. But it's been 3 months now. It's 90 days today since that ballot, and it's still not on the city charter.
Thank you for bringing it to
Thank
our
you.
attention.
No, thank you.
I can address that if
Okay.
you'd like. We codify any new ordinances or charter amendments generally twice a year, but I did a special case of this one and sent it in about 6 weeks ago, or maybe a month ago. Not quite 6 weeks ago. And it just takes time for the codifier, because we send it to a codifier company, and they it just takes some time to do it. And I haven't heard back from them quite yet. They're not done, so it's in the process.
Okay.
So can you kind of explain a codifier company? What is that?
They take the ordinances that are passed, and they. Bill, help me out here.
Sure. And I guess the one thing,
layman's term.
in layman's term, but the one critical thing in layman's term is, regardless of what's on the website, that's in the charter, and this city is bound by it as of December 1st, I think it is. So it's in the charter. It's just not shown up on the website yet. And a codifier is someone who takes the ordinances that the city passes and puts them into some organized fashion. And prior to our code being codified, you would have the land use ordinance, you'd have the public streets ordinance, you'd have the sidewalk ordinances, and what a codifier does is take that all and organize them into the book that you've seen, and now more readily on the internet. And our codifier, I believe, is in Florida, if I remember right. And so the communication, they codify a whole bunch of cities and probably have a relatively short staff. And that's part of what we're doing. But what we can tell you is that every one of the urban renewal commissioners is aware of that amendment, and it's in the charter, is effective, and we'll work to make sure that gets the internet representation of it gets updated as well.
I understand the nervousness, though. I totally do.
Do we know when our next update is scheduled to be done?
It's in the process right now.
Okay, but
And-
you don't
and
have
I would
like
say
June
within,
and
Oh no, I
December?
would say within a month or so I should hear from them, and it should be up online.
Okay.
I'm guessing, but approximately.
You gotta come up. You gotta come up.
Will that be section 59?
The codifier actually makes that call. The question was what the section number would be, and I would expect it would be section 59, but we'll
Wait and
see.
Great. Thank you. Okay, any other, let me go back over here. No one else on the, okay, so we'll move on to adoption of the agenda. Hi, Phil.
I don't know. He might be gone.
This turned into a
Yeah,
I move that we adopt the agenda.
second.
great. It's been moved and seconded.
We don't
There's
have
no
to-
need for a vote.
Okay, storefront improvement grant program.
Okay.
You have a staff report on that?
Yeah. Basically, I've got two storefront grant applications before you tonight. The first one is 703 Main Street, It is the tenant in there now is Santi Insurance, and also the next door tenant of that building is the new Mexican restaurant there. What they're proposing for this storefront improvement is just to take the existing awning down, or to shorten the frame of the existing awning. Eliminate the awning section over the Santi Insurance portion, but keep a smaller awning over the Mexican restaurant there. And so it would be a shorter frame with a new cover. And I believe the cover of the awning would be black. In addition to that effort, they would be painting the building. I think a red has been proposed, a dynamic red. And this will provide some distinction between the two businesses there on Main Street. And it would clean it up quite a bit. Nothing is proposed for the mural in that building. They want to keep it as is. And they are requesting a whopping total of $772.50 for this grant.
Is that for the awning and the painting?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And it's exactly a one-to-one match for this grant. Staff, the review committee reviewed this grant application, and we approved it internally, well above the minimum threshold of 70%. I think we came in at 81% to recommend approval for this. So with that, I believe, Mr. Santi, are you? Okay, we haven't been introduced yet, but he's here to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, I did recall talking about this, and I know we were doing it with the OCCIT grants, but having criteria met that we know how many previous times people have applied for monies, and I don't believe
He's a new applicant, first-time applicant. Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Yes, Rocky?
In terms of the awning, we're talking shrinking it so it doesn't, the angle isn't as, it would come down from the mural and then out, rather than straight from the bottom of the mural out. So there'd be space in between. Is that what you were? There's not a mock-up, so I'm trying to visualize a written
Sure. The
description.
Existing awning, the shape would stay the same. It would be shortened from covering both tenants to simply over the Mexican restaurant.
Okay.
We talk to a board, whoever had reviewed this, about maybe bringing that down. That is not possible due to the building shape behind the awning.
And how, right.
It would need to remain the same height, but it would be, it would essentially, if you just cut off at the doorway of that Mexican restaurant, that would be brand new awning, same design.
And then no awning at all, the rest?
No awning at all. Over Santi Insurance, we're hoping to paint the exterior of the building and bring a lot more attention to it. It would as well also become, that building would then become visible from up top in the park as you walk along above the elevator. Right now, the awning blocks the building. You can't see anything but a very dirty blue awning. It would make this building very visible, and I think be a very good visual aspect for the rest of the buildings that are down there. Now that the streets have been repaved and everything is looking fresh and new, and the other buildings are taking down their awnings, I think it would go along. The reason we want to get rid of this awning is there was talk by urban developers that came in and talked to us about how to make the streetscape look better. One of the recommendations, a specific recommendation, was to take down the awnings as they looked old and outdated.
And I would assume then the reason you're proposing to keep it over the restaurant is because it doesn't have a inset for the door, right?
Yes.
I mean, so there's at least coverage in the office. I'm just looking at just the one picture here, but
sure.
So I guess that makes sense.
My office is set back.
Right.
There is an area there. The Mexican restaurant does not have. It's not set back, and they are fearful that if it were to be raining heavily, there's just a little ledge there, and that would drip upon everybody that tried to come in the doorway.
It's true.
I don't want to pick it apart too much because it's such a small grant. It's doing some good to that building. So this is not specific to necessarily to this project, but more in general to the commission. I think about murals in general. This is the second storefront grant that has come to us in very short time with buildings with murals. One of which has already been lost. So I appreciate the acknowledgement that the hope is to keep the mural. Although, spending money to make a great building look nice and still have a crappy mural above it that needs to be redone or touched up, kind of, especially when I think the coloring of the building is going to be probably tied in directly with that mural in terms of the red, or at least it should be. You want it all to tie together, and that would make sense. So I guess my question would be, why not ask for more money and restore the mural? And we haven't talked about this as an Urban Renewal Commission, but the buildings that have come to us that have had murals on them have never asked for support for restoring the murals, which I think would be a big part of what Urban Renewal might want to consider doing in buildings that have murals on them. There's no other means right now. I hope in the future we get an arts commission or a mural society or something back to deal with that. But right now, I think the only feasible way that the city has to help keep those murals there is probably through the storefront grant. And I'm just curious as to why the projects are coming forward and that's not really been discussed or even kind of offered as an option for us to talk about. So I could see, especially in taking such a major effort in restoring, especially the painting of the building and choosing a color that makes that building stand out, if that color happened to tie in with the very image of that building, which is the streetcar and the history of the city, which is also red, it seems to me that would all be part of redoing that whole facade. And so if you would, I guess, answer that in terms of your project, but then it's also a broader question, I think, for us to think about in the future, because I would think that you'd probably well, in my perception, you might be successful asking for more if you did that. I don't know.
Valid question.
Yeah.
I would like to do that.
Yeah.
The building owner, whom I am not,
okay,
is the one that is fronting the majority of the money.
Okay.
On half,
Right.
I have done my very best to get more out of her,
Right.
because from what I understood, this needs to be a matching grant.
Right.
I put up a couple $100 of my own, and then had to get the rest from the building owner. She was not willing to put any additional money to put, say, a clear lacquer
Right.
or something over that. I do think that would be a very good thing to do. That is something that I've talked to her about doing in the future, but it is not something that I was successful to get from her.
Okay, this may be asking way too much, so if it is, don't answer it. So is she essentially the building owner is kind of matching you as a business in some way, and then you're matching that with the city, right?
To a degree.
Okay.
I wanted to get this done because I think that this would improve our building quite a bit. I think bring many more eyes for all of these new cars that are coming across the bridge. And the owner is just she's not really involved.
But it alludes to, so is the dream of restoring the mural more business, your perspective, or the building owner's perspective?
I understand that mural is a part of this town and the history of this town. So I think it's a good thing to keep it there. I think that it needs some work done to it, and I think it needs a lacquer or something to protect it against time in the future. The building owner also is dear with that. One of the conductors in that
Is
photo
the owner,
is the owner,
right.
is her father.
Right.
So she certainly wants to keep that
Okay.
as well. I think that since she wants to keep that there should be something done to it to further protect it. But
Well, that might be a comment.
Yeah,
that
would
you
she be
take
more
back
inclined to
her.
do that if she, you know,
If she
if we
knew.
were discussing the possibility of matching that too? I
Yeah.
mean, she might be reluctant to spend more money on a project if she doesn't think she can do it. I don't know. So I think that might be a discussion. I mean, that's only my own perspective, but I think, you know, partly just doing part of a building and leaving part of it not done, or at least knowing that there needs to be some help with the upper part, especially when it's so key to the design of the build, or to not necessarily the design of the building, but to the way that the building is now. And I think actually, to some degree, the mural is going to be much more of a focal point when half that awning comes down.
Yes.
And so, in design-wise, I appreciate or I understand the concern about the awning in terms of the covered areas, but it then turns a symmetrical building into a non-symmetrical building, which also is a design, you know, not necessarily a concern. It does one good thing where it makes the entire building kind of unsymmetrical, but it then kind of illustrates more so that it's a multi-business building rather than a one business building.
Sure.
Visually,
Well, it is
it breaks
a
that up.
multi-business.
No, I know, but visually, I'm saying right now from the street,
and that's what we want.
right? So it would do that.
Great. Thank you. Paul?
Along that line, Rocky, maybe there is an opportunity for us to jointly between the Urban Renewal Commission and the City Commission to look at putting together some type of group to look at how do we come up with somebody to assess the way that we maintain these murals and the artistic attributes that are important to the history of the city. And this could be a joint project, and we just we start looking at it because this may be just the tip of the iceberg of saying, yes, you have identified something that we need to get our arms around it and start come up with a plan to address.
Maybe we should have a work session on murals.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah, this could
Art-
be.
But I
think
do-
art in general, but
Art
Yeah.
in general, that's
But it's-
fine.
But yeah, the
But I do
artistic
wanna move-
attributes.
yeah, I did want to take.
Yeah, can we move forward in a?
Yeah.
Well, let's
Or-
let Doug speak
okay.
first.
Well, it's just basically a question. Aren't I right in saying there was a mural society?
Yeah, there was.
Oh yeah, there was
Yeah.
a mural society, but that's been gone
Years.
for a long, long time. And then the Arts Commission kind of took its place because there really wasn't anything else, and that's also has gone away. So I think those I mean, that's one of my goals in the next year or so is to deal with that. But this is another piece of it too.
It's what I'm saying is it's something that should occur whether that was even in an urban renewal district or not.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, so Eric, how do you see this going? Do we vote on each one, or do we do them separately? What are we doing?
We do this one first. Yeah.
Let's do them separately.
Okay.
The other one has a different recommendation.
So shall we?
Well, I move for approval.
Okay.
I'll second. And do you want the motion read out loud?
Yeah, you move for approval, if you could
So
be
you
more
gotta read the
specific.
motion.
I move for approval of the storefront improvement grant for 703 Main Street.
And I'll
I'll
second.
Second that.
Mhm.
Okay, and we're going to do the roll call tonight.
Okay.
Commissioner Polly?
Yes.
Commissioner Mum?
Here, yes. I'm here.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
yes.
Commissioner Edgar?
Here, yes.
Commissioner Yates?
See what I started here.
And Chair Roth?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Power of positive thinking.
Okay, so the next one we have is storefront improvement grant application for 707 Main Street, which is the Masonic Building.
That's
This one, the committee reviewed it, and we felt like that there wasn't enough information in the application. And there are some other issues regarding historical elements and whatnot that have not been addressed that we feel like need to be addressed before this application is deemed complete. So we are recommending as a committee to table this application until we get that information, until we have a chance to address those issues, and possibly bring it back to the commission for the next meeting.
These 2 pages were the only ones that were included in the submission?
Right, yes,
Wow.
yes. We didn't,
Yeah, that's not, yeah, we need more information.
Yes.
Okay.
So do we need a motion?
Motion to table.
Okay,
Paul, do
let
you
me,
have a comment first?
Before we do this, one of the things on the 707 Main Street North Masonic Building, one of the long-term tenants of that building for many, many years, Art Stengel was my attorney, and I talked to him a lot about it. He's moved out of the building after near 20 years in that location. He's had many discussions with the Masonic people before it was purchased by T5 Equities, and the implications of making that building stable for earthquakes or for a lot of things are significant. And he alluded to me that estimates had been in the millions to stabilize that property. So I become very concerned if we were to put good money, in a sense, after bad, on projects going to that without some real assessments of what we're getting into, because if in fact those offhand statements had any reality to them, we could have this could be a place where we wouldn't want to be putting money. And I think we need to make sure that real, honest assessments are made of that property
any
beforehand,
property.
before any storefront grant.
Yeah, but that could be the case of any property down there, actually. I don't think any of them are earthquake-proof. But I would agree that we need more information, so I would agree to table this.
Right. And also when we were thinking of when we're thinking of looking at people being prior applicants and receiving prior grants, I think we need to talk about whether it's per corporation or per person.
Yeah, that's another good point.
So I think we need to really look at that.
Okay. And just so you know, we do factor that into our review when we're scoring the sheets, whether or not they've applied before. And so that's one of the criteria.
Yeah.
And so if they have, then they're going to get a lower score typically than a new time or first time applicant, because we're trying to encourage new applicants.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Okay, so we want to table.
Yeah, I agree that we need more information, but in addition to that, with buildings that are this significant, for instance, I think the requirement is even more so than what we would normally expect. When we looked at the Weinhardt building, for instance, buildings that are that crucial to the downtown in terms of their size and the everything, I think this is one that's going to be really phenomenal, and if it's done right. And so from my point of view, I want to see all the historical pictures I can of that building and what it was and what, so I'm sure they know that, and from tabling tonight, the message I hope gets through that we want to see quite a bit with this, because I think we're all really excited about the potential what this building could be, because we've talked about it for a long time. So.
But the critical issue is change of use. If there is
Right.
a change of use to residential, then it changes everything.
Well, absolutely, totally.
Is there a way to request of them, Eric, an update so we could make a better decision on what Paul's concern about earthquake? Because I agree, we don't want to be spending money on something that's not going to make it.
Right. We can do that. We're going to be meeting with them hopefully next week, and we can communicate that if they have some updates or reports seismic issues or whether or not it needs to be sprinkled, that sort of thing. Any triggering that is going to occur because of these improvements, we'll have them submit that. That's one of the things that we want to address in our meeting. Is there's some other things out there. One of the red flags is there's a potential agreement that the Masons drafted that, and I haven't seen this, but it's just one of the things that you hear about talking about this building that we need to investigate. Is there may be an agreement where any improvements that are done to that building are going to trigger a sprinkle system. So we need to investigate that further. That's not addressed in this application. So those are the types of things we'll be discussing.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for looking. So do we have a motion to table that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Commissioner Pauly?
Yes.
Commissioner Mum?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Neely?
Yes.
Commissioner Edgar?
Yes.
Commissioner Yates?
Yes.
And Chair Roth.
Yes.
Motion passes to table.
Okay. Future agenda items.
Murals.
Murals, yeah. Okay.
If I might, may I
Sure.
suggest that we actually have a study session that is actually directed to that? I mean, it's a broad discussion. We wouldn't be making any decisions, but
Right.
having
Could
a
it-
study session, you'll get people that are specifically interested in that particular topic coming.
And possibly Urban Renewal and City Commission?
Sure.
Don't know.
You know what
Or-
I'd suggest on that too is that maybe we reach out to the families who have members in the pictures of the murals and specifically invite them, like the Wolves and all those people.
Cool.
I would like to put onto an agenda, as an agenda item, the resolution that we started last year on the transfer of property or ownership for the property that went into the jug handle bioswale, and we were going to transfer property, some corresponding properties of value, of equal value or something, to the Urban Renewal Commission and just kind of flip-flop that. That has never been resolved and was an
Yeah, it's
agenda.
not been brought back up. Yeah, you're right.
And I'd like to see it brought back up and brought to a resolution so that we just get it put to bed.
Okay. Thank you. Rocky?
I'm wondering if we could get a quick update on a couple questions from staff. One of which is, I'm curious, is the project that was brought to us at one time for the living room pub. Is that completely gone away? I think the building's for sale or for lease again. Or
Yeah,
something,
I
so
think
that's,
it's
they're
for
not.
lease. I've tried to contact them to give me an official notice saying that they're denying the grant award or they're selling the building. I have
So we haven't
not
heard
heard from
anything.
them at all,
Okay.
and I'm still attempting to try to get in touch with them.
And is the Weinhard building, is that still in process in terms of, are they coming in terms of the other side, the rest of the building?
Right, they're
Are they still
they're
working
still
on
working
that?
on it.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, they're still in progress on that one.
Very good, thank you.
I would also like to get a report on our marketing efforts of the properties, everything from the properties next to McDonald's out there to any properties that we have around that are, or efforts that we have to create economic development and redevelopment within the urban renewal area. So where are we and what's happening?
Well, we've actually had some action on one of our infill properties that I've been working with a client on. This is the 12th and Main, and hopefully something will be coming forward to the commission soon on that one.
Yay! Very cool.
Yes, that's good news. And there is a new land of opportunity sign that's been placed on the properties next to McDonald's there, and I'm working on the packet to put it on the website listed with the other properties that are available. I'm still working with the national media companies and putting those properties in those publications. And with retreat and the holidays, I haven't had a lot of opportunity to get into the marketing piece, but that's going to be gearing back up. I'm talking with OPB again. We still have some budget for advertising and marketing those properties, so that'll be getting underway here soon.
Great.
Along with that, Eric, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I feel like we need to rethink that property on 10th and Main because of the limitations that are on it and what we're asking for to be done there.
That's a tough site.
Yeah.
So, 'cause
It is
it's very small to begin with, and then if anything is developed on that property, you're going to lose an access, and it's going to be the one next to the railroad.
Right.
And if you think about it, the only other access is going to be off of Main, and that's really constrained too.
There's a
And so you're gonna
right-hand turn lane there.
Yeah, and you're going to have to. It's going to be two directions, ingress and egress, right at that. And by the time that's done, those improvements are made. There's not much of a building that you can put on that site.
So a parking lot might be a good choice.
Or a carousel of dachshunds.
I'm going to the parking lot because I think we'll make money that way.
Since the discussion's opened up, and I think just because of access and so forth, I think a parking lot would be challenging. There wouldn't be that many parking spaces there. And maybe there should be some consideration of having an appropriate plaza or something that works better.
Well, I know Blaine talked about something too with bicycles.
There have been several things, several ideas that have been tossed around. Anything from a bike track to test out bikes to maybe like kind of an open pavilion kind of thing. So, yeah, it's a tough site, and it may be time to think about what we want to do there.
If we could bring up ideas of
Portland State University comes to mind.
Another thing I would like to see sometime brought on the agenda is talking about downtown parking, a kind of a re-review, reassessment of what we have of in downtown. I've had discussions that David's been part of and that's gone on, talking with the district attorney and the senior judge about the needs for greater needs for parking on Main Street in that area, and what are the options and what players and partners could be brought forward, including the county, or to help us create a more permanent long-term solutions to creating adequate access for businesses and people with handicaps in Oregon City. So I remember getting a letter from Blaine Meyer talking about that problem directly, where he felt that there was it was inadequate for where people coming in perceive Oregon City as difficult, and it's kind of almost the failure to have reasonable access, and so when they see it, it's a disincentive for the downtown Main Street to be perceived a good place to open up a business, and that problem won't go away unless we start getting a little bit more creative. And I think that this is some area where maybe we could have a work session, try to open up ideas, but I think it's something that needs to be discussed out, because it's somewhere along the line we need to create better solutions than what we have.
Okay, well, I have a thought on that, and I was telling someone today that certainly not daily, but more often than weekly, I get comments from someone about parking downtown, and they're always negative. And I had an experience last night that really made me mad. It was pouring rain. I had ordered some soup at the Thai restaurant. I had to run down the whole block to get a 25-cent thing to put in my dashboard to go in and pick up my to-go soup. And it was just a mess. It was really inconvenient. But someone told me the other day that they were considering quitting their volunteer position. They're a CASA advocate for children, because now that the CASA people meet at the courthouse for their hearings, they don't have any place, and they're taking time off of their job to come take care of this. CASA does not reimburse for parking.
No.
They don't have time to go out of the courthouse and move their cars. If they park on the hill, it takes time away from their job that they're getting paid for. And she was saying, it's just not worth it to me anymore because it's such a hassle to get in there. So that was very, very sad to me that somebody's really considering a real worthwhile volunteer position, giving that up and because of our parking. So,
I want to remind the commission we have our $300,000 offer that we made to the county in writing, and they have till the fiscal year to tap those funds and see if they come up with a solution. I haven't heard any solutions yet. I've heard some talk about trying to expand the parking at probation and parole. That's pretty far from the core, so that's probably not going to address the real problem. I think there's an opportunity perhaps with a different composition on the county commission that another letter from us would help. At least it might get a different look than the last one. And also, as you know, the city's going to be putting on your schedule a work session on the trolleys, and there could be an opportunity that we could.
Would the county like to buy them?
Who knows?
It's just an idea.
Who knows?
Who knows?
But I know at our retreat we talked a little bit about the possibility of having some kind of a shuttle service that would minimize, take away some of the negative effects of having all that county operation in the core. What I think is important is for us to remember that this operation is in our front living room, and we have to live with it and deal with it, but we also don't want to completely subsidize that operation. So we want to make sure that there's a partnership, I think, in trying to solve it. We're trying to forge that partnership, I think, by putting this money on the table and not just making statements. If there is, if the trolleys go away and we end up with a shuttle service and as sort of a replacement, there might be an opportunity for them to join with the city in trying to meet the obligation to provide that shuttle service. And that could be, I think, a temporary thing. I don't think it's going to solve the long term. The example Commissioner Roth brought up, I don't think it's going to be solved by a shuttle service.
Are we going to have a work session, I think, on the trolleys, or just talk about that? Okay,
Yeah,
so that's
it's
coming up.
Yeah.
Next month or two.
Okay, great.
Just 2 comments. We've talked a lot about parking, and staff is going to come back and say, we have a parking plan, but we haven't enacted it because we haven't hired a parking manager and we haven't put money behind it, which I understand. Another thought is, since so many of the county businesses are down there, maybe we should have a work session with the county commissioners. And specifically talk about just Main Street parking.
yeah.
And invite the Main Street Board to attend. I mean, it'd be a big room, but at least everybody would be in the same room.
I think that's a great idea. I would like to suggest that we put that on your calendar and see if we can make that happen. I would like to suggest that we might want to have the work session first on the trolleys, so that when we're at that table, we at least have a clear head about what we think.
Yeah. No, I'm fine with that. I just threw that out.
So we'll get that. We'll try to set that work session up after the trolley discussion.
Yeah.
We could also put the trolleys in that 10th and Main Street lot to sell. Okay, do we have any other future agenda items? City manager's report?
Well, I have 2 items, and they're almost equally applicable for this commission as the next. So I'll just give them here, so I don't have to give them twice. First is I did send a letter out to the state DOT, the chief bridge inspector, about the bridge abutment that was a concern a citizen raised in your last, I think it was a city commission meeting. And I've been trading phone calls this week with Brock Nelson of Union Pacific Railroad, but in the interim, I've been hearing reports from our Public Works Department that contractors have been asking questions about possibly putting together a bid. So there may even be some activity from the railroad on removing the structure. So I think that's a possibility, but I'm trying to confirm it right now. But it does seem like our letter at least generated some interest in a phone call or two. And then I have a note here to report on upcoming hazing of sea lions. I added the of sea lions because I'm pretty sure that's what it's about.
I was thinking senior hazing day.
You looking at me?
Has anyone heard? Has anyone heard any shots? Okay, so it's
my household. All the time.
And I think it's a 7-day-a-week program this year. Last year it was not. I don't believe it was. So that's that.
You know, I don't know if we bring this up here, but someone suggested to me, why aren't we using decoys of killer whales?
Giant inflatable whale.
Yeah.
That's a
Well, that's their only predator.
That's a brilliant idea.
Commissioner Smith just said, "Why wasn't fireworks at the same time so we have something to watch while they're
that's
making
a
all the
good
noise?" Fireworks every night.
No, I don't think the only trouble is the sea lions aren't very active at night, so I don't know
Yeah.
if it'd be very helpful.
Oh,
I
darn
believe
it.
The other
ODFW
thing
has a
is sea lion-
website where they take suggestions for things.
Oh, good idea.
Seriously,
Oh,
they
no.
might be. They might. They
The
may
sea
have.
lions are incredibly intelligent. I doubt.
Yes.
I doubt if.
You think
They won't be
decoy
fooled
wouldn't?
by
I don't think the
inflatable.
I don't
Even if
think
we
they
moved
would.
it every day or something. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Anything else,
they are
David?
amazing. Actually, I talked to one of the biologists last year, and he said that one of them has learned their routine and the sound.
Yes.
They hide, and there's this hide and seek thing they play with the.
Very much.
So it's yeah. Just go to the circus if you don't think they're intelligent.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay. I think that we are adjourned.